before that last break that the senator from Alabama would be joining us today, the chair of the Senate Banking Committee, hosting today's hearing. Senator Shelby is now with us. Senator, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate your time. What do you make of what you heard from the Fed chair today?
Well, it's part of the same old story, you know. Give us a report on the economy, but the economy is really not as bright as the Fed chairman would tell us. You know, the real unemployment rate is still too high. The economy is not growing like we would like for it to do in a robust way. It's growing, but it's growing slowly. And I think the Fed has missed a boat 3 times already. They act like they're going to raise the interest rates on the Fed funds, and then something happens and they don't. I'm not sure their data that they're operating from is that reliable.
I'm glad you went there, because I thought it was interesting and somewhat telling that you asked your very first question about the Fed's credibility. It speaks to the issue in which you're talking about here. Do you think the Fed has a credibility issue?
I do. I think they've got a credibility issue in a lot of ways, but the one I was referring to was I'm not sure that the data that they collect everywhere and they claim to be such experts at is working for them, because beginning the first of the year, you know, they sent signals they were going to raise interest rates, they were going to do this, and then they back off. Something's amiss there. We don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's inside the Fed.
Well, what do you make, though, of the Fed's seeming inability to predict where the economy is going, and for that matter, even where it is as we have this conversation, sir?
That's an excellent question you just posed. That's what we all are concerned about. Is the Fed, what they pronounce and what they see and what they do, is that reliable? Is it respected? I think it's real questionable.
Some would say, though, if the data changes along the way, shouldn't the Fed have the ability to change its own mind?
Oh, absolutely, but over and over and over? You got to ask those questions.
It is a fair question, one that certainly has been asked by a number of people that watch this network and that we speak to on a daily basis. Do you think the Fed should raise interest rates next month?
Oh, I don't have the data to say that or not do it. I think they should be very careful. This economy is not robust. She would even admit that today. It's growing, but growing slowly. Could you choke off the recovery that way? Inflation is basically subdued worldwide, but that's a call that the Fed has made in the past, should make in the future, but they should have good information to do it.
I thought Senator Reid made an interesting observation when he said the issue of Congress, you folks, not complementing Fed policy with fiscal policy of their own. The Fed's the only game in town. Do you think that you and your colleagues have made a mistake by not joining Fed policy with fiscal policy?
Well, it depends on how you define and what you're alluding to here. I've always thought that we borrow too much money, we save too little money, and we spend too much. You know, and that's Congress, and that's this administration, too. The Fed's number one, I know they talk about full employment and price stability, but price stability is important to the whole monetary system.
Sure, there is the suggestion, though, that fiscal stimulus, some sort of stimulus package, if added to the Fed's toolbox, would or at least have the potential to make this economy stronger than it currently is.
Well, not necessarily. You know, if you look at the history of artificial fiscal stimulus, it generally doesn't work.
Sir, do you think the Fed chair has done a good job on the job?
Well, I think fair. You know, I didn't support her when she was nominated to be the Fed chairman, because I know a little about her history. She's cautious, and she should be cautious, but she should know what she's doing. I'm not sure the Fed knows what they're doing.
In fact, you didn't support her nomination as vice chair either. There have been some suggestions written out there that you're one of the biggest thorns in her side.
Well, I don't know if I'm a thorn in her side, but I think that somebody needs to speak up for the American people.